Hey YouTube, Tweak here, bringing you all an update to my Eyes Restrict Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post-Maze of Millennia. Eyes Restrict, Relinquish, the Maximilian Pegasus deck, whatever you want to call this deck. We got the new Eye of Illusion in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster set, so I figured I'd update this deck. It's been a while since the last update to it. The whole deck focuses on being able to take your opponent's monsters and equip them on to your own Relinquish or Eyes Restrict monsters, and then gain additional attack and also additional power in terms of monsters equipped onto those cards. The new spell Eye of Illusion helps with that play style, being able to, speed up the process, equipping them onto your spellcasters as a quick play spell, and then just utilizing the other support we've gotten from previous sets like the Duelist pack and also the King's Court booster set. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. Most important card in the deck is Relinquish. We're running 3 copies of this card, having the option to have this card's attack and defense be equal to the monster for this card that is equipped onto it, and if it would be destroyed, you can destroy the monster instead, and then your opponent takes any damage that you would have taken from attacks involving Relinquish. And just being able to take that monster of your opponent's and equip it onto Relinquish gives you all the added power of also being able to just, rid your opponent of those resources they could have used. It's a level 1 ritual monster, so very, very easy to summon out with all the other resources we have in the deck and our Black Illusion Ritual to summon this card out as well. One of the other 3 ofs that we run in the deck is our Millennium Eyes Illusionist, which we also run 3 of. Quick effect, you can discard this card, then target one effect monster your opponent controls. Equip that target to an Eyes Restrict Fusion monster or Relinquish you control, as if it were equipped by that monster's effect. If an Eyes Restrict Fusion monster or Relinquish is special summon, add this card from your graveyard to your hand. That is not optional, and then you can only use this effect of Millennium Eyes Illusionist once per turn. So you have the discard power if your opponent were to destroy the card on your Relinquish, leaving it with no other card equipped. You can then quickly just discard your Millennium Eyes Illusionist to equip the card back onto your opponent, taking another one of your opponent's cards to then keep your Relinquished or your Eyes Restrict monster safe on the field. Also running 3 copies of Golden Eyes Idol, while also counting as our Thousand Eyes Idol, so we can meet the fusion requirements for our Thousand Eyes Restrict. Once per turn quick effect, you can activate this effect to look at your opponent's hand, and then that's how its name becomes Thousand Eyes Idol till the end phase. If this card's banished or sent to the graveyard by a card effect, which it will be with the fusion play, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls and equip that monster to one Eyes Restrict or Relinquish monster you control that cannot be normal summon. And while equipped by this effect, that monster gains attack equal to the attack of the equipped monster, giving you additional boost thanks to the Golden Eyes Idol. But once again, it counts as the Thousand Eyes Idol if we were to use it for a fusion play, which we will with our Relinquish Fusion that we'll use for the majority of our fusion summons. And then also 3 copies of Illusionist Faceless Magician. If a face-up Eyes Restrict Fusion monster or Relinquish you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from the graveyard if it was there when the monster was destroyed, or hand if not. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target an Eyes Restrict Fusion or Relinquish in your graveyard and special summon it. You can only use this effect of Illusionist Faceless Magician once per turn. We run 3 copies of this card just so we have the option to see it more in the hand. So if it were to have your Relinquish destroyed, you can then just summon this card out as a more defensive measure. Then if your opponent gets over this card, you can immediately summon back your Relinquish onto the field, just making it difficult for your opponent to keep your field clear of monsters. And then also 3 copies of Diviner of Herald, just for more ritual search. Having the send effect, we can send options like our Herald of the Arclight from our extract to the graveyard to then give us search for either the ritual monster or the ritual spell off of this card. With the last of the main deck monsters being 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and Trap of Choice as in the majority of decks. If you didn't want to run Diviner of Herald, or if you don't have it, you can always put in another hand trap option like Effect Veiler, being a level 1 monster to use for some of our other extra deck summons. And moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Relinquished Fusion. Fusion summon 1 Eyes Restrict Fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing materials from your hand, field, and or graveyard. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 1 effect monster your opponent controls. Equip that target to an Eyes Restrict Fusion monster or Relinquish you control, as if it were equipped by that monster effect. You can only use each effect of Relinquish Fusion once per turn, but that's why we're also running 3 copies of Relinquish and Golden Eyes Idol, so we have plenty of resources to use for the banish for our quick play spell in the deck to then use this card to be able to get out either our Thousand Eyes Restrict or the easier to summon Millennium Eyes Restrict, since it just needs a Relinquished and an effect monster instead of the Thousand Eyes Idol. Also 2 copies of Black Illusion Ritual. I feel I just need the 2 because we have plenty of search power in the form of pre-preparation of rites and also the preparation of rites to add it back from the graveyard, since this card specifically names Relinquished in its text. Same with the spell play for our Relinquished, needing the Black Illusion Ritual to summon it out. For the new card in the deck from Maze of Millennia, I was thinking of running 3 copies of this card. If you were to do so, you can just take out an additional copy of Pre-Preparation of Rites or one of our other spells for a 3rd copy of this card. With Eye of Illusion, if you control an illusion or spellcaster monster, activate one of these effects. Your spellcaster monster cannot be destroyed by battle this turn, protecting your Relinquished or your Eyes Restrict monster. Or during your opponent's turn, target a face-up monster your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase. And when an opponent's monster declares an attack, target one face-up monster your opponent controls except the attacking monster and change that attack target to it. So very, Relinquished and Eyes Restrict card plays, changing the battle of which monster were to attack, taking the resources also to use as your own, or just protecting your other Relinquished monsters. So once again, if you wanted to run a 3rd copy of this card, you can either take out the pre-preparation of rites. I'm kind of against this tech to take out because I do like the search power this card's providing, just giving you the ritual spell and then adding a ritual monster whose name is mentioned in that ritual spell just gives you those 2 monsters all the easier in your hand for you to use. And also the 2 preparation of rites, since you just add a level 7 or lower ritual monster from your deck to your hand, then you can add the ritual spell, which since we're running less numbers of Black Illusion Ritual, back from our graveyard to our hand. I also run the 2 copies of Forbidden Droplet. This is good because it helps to take away just some of the cards in the field. If your opponent's avoiding, destroying the Relinquish, you can send the equip card to the graveyard, negating the effect of your opponent's monster, and then just reuse Relinquish again to take another monster that they have. Also 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity to search out some of the more needed cards we need for our plays. We're running 3 ofs for a good majority of the Relinquish and Eyes Restrict monsters in the extra deck, so they can be banished for cost if need be to search out some of the other cards we need in the deck, with some of the other 1-ofs for the spells being 1 instant fusion, just another quick way to grab any of our fusion monsters to summon on the field as a resource to use to take our opponent's monster, and then we can easily link them off into one of our Link 1 monsters also. Also 1 copy of Triple Tactics Talent and Call by the Grave to finish off the spell lineup, with the only traps that we run in the deck being 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, Hand Trap Spot, along with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring in the monster lineup. Not really any traps that we run to power the Eyes Restrict play. But moving on to the extra deck, we're running 3 copies of Thousand Eyes Restrict, needing the Relinquished and the Thousand Eyes Idol to summon it out. But Golden Eyes Idol counts as this card's name when you use its card effect, so using Relinquished Fusion, you can use these 2 monsters to summon out this card, or use your Instant Fusion, whichever one you have in your hand first. Other monsters on the field cannot change their battle position or attack. Once per turn, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, equip that target to this card, maximum 1, and this card's attack and defense become equal to the equipped monsters, and if this card be destroyed by battle, destroy the equipped monster instead. So more of a restricted, as the name says, play compared to Relinquish, but still very, very useful in the deck. And the more powered up version being our Millennium Eyes Restrict, needing a Relinquished and 1 effect monster to make this card. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard, equip that target to this card you control. It gains attack and defense equal to that equipped monsters that with the original name. And also, monsters with that name cannot attack. Also, their effects on the field are negated. So if you have a multiple name that you can take from your opponent, you'll use that resource against them thanks to Millennium Eyes Restrict. Also, the 2 copies of the Elder Entity Knits for the option to send as well off of Herald of Light for our Diviner of Herald to have a destruction play against our opponent. You could always decrease the number of Elder Entity to increase the number of Herald if you wanted, just a 2nd copy of this. And for the Link monsters, 1 copy of Relinquished Anima, 1 copy of Link Karibo, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and then for the Xyz monsters, 1 Sylvan Princess Sprite and the 1 Superstar Slayer Typhon. We don't go into Xyz often, but it's an option to have, or just another banished card for Pot of Prosperity. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said, the big play comes down to just your ritual play. So opening up your pre-preparation of rites gives you the search for the spell and the monster. And then if you have the additional monster to use for the ritual play in your hand, just having these two cards can then help to set off your initial play, giving you the ritual summon of your relinquished monster. So going second in this deck, I would say, is the best option, because then you can take your opponent's monster and equip it onto your relinquished monster, and also using other plays as well. If your opponent were to try and destroy relinquish, you you have the new Eye of Illusion to protect it, or even just take one of your opponent's resources as a quick play spell to set up to go on the defensive against your opponent. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.